I gave birth in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, with no health insurance, paying everything completely out of pocket, and it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. Today, I'm breaking down exactly what it costs so that if you're a digital nomad, an expat, or just someone considering having a baby abroad, you have real numbers to work with. If you're new here, hi, I'm Danielle. I'm a creator, coach, and full-time traveler, and I had my son, Leven, via elective C-section in Brazil last year. This channel is where I talk about building a life and a business on your own terms, so make sure to subscribe. We have new videos every Monday. I'm currently recording this in Florianopolis, Brazil, where my husband and I just applied for citizenship. And I want to start by saying, I searched for this video when I was pregnant. I looked for real numbers from real people who gave birth abroad as foreigners, paying privately without insurance. And what I found was mostly vague and not specific enough to actually help me plan. A lot of it was also in other countries. So this is a video I wish existed for birth in Brazil as a foreigner. I'm going to be sharing real numbers and my actual experience, whether I think it was worth it, which, spoiler, yes, absolutely yes. Let me start with insurance because this is usually the first question I get asked. We had no maternity coverage, and not because we didn't look into it, but we looked into it a little too late. So by the time we found out I was pregnant, most international insurance plans had already passed the window to enroll with maternity coverage. They usually require that you start paying into it before you even get pregnant, which I didn't know about. So we simply just hadn't done that in time. And so we looked at our options. I'm American, my husband is British. So we looked into the NHS in the UK. Because I am not a permanent resident in the UK or a citizen, I would have to pay out of pocket. Like if my husband gave birth, it would be covered. But for me, I would have to pay out of pocket. So the estimated cost in the NHS would have been around £7,000, which at the time was like around $9,500. And that is for a country with a public healthcare system for residents and citizens. In the US, private health insurance runs around $600 to $1,000 per month, and that's before you factor in the deductible. So by the time you add up premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs, giving birth in America can run anywhere from $10,000 to $3,000 or more, depending on your plan and your circumstances. In the US, because I don't spend any time there except for a few weeks per year, they also don't allow you to enroll for only part of the year. So I would have had to enroll in a window in a time frame for 12 months time and pay every single month. In both the US and the UK, you're not allowed to choose to have an elective C-section without just cause. And I'll go into that a little later, but I wanted an elective C-section. So why Brazil and why Rio? We looked at other countries that offered citizenship by birth, like Mexico and Costa Rica, most of North and South America, but we had spent the pandemic in Brazil and we really just loved the people and the culture and the food and a lot of things about Brazil. My husband and I both surf, so we wanted the beach lifestyle while being close to good hospitals. We had never been to Rio before, but as we have been traveling together basically since we met, we are very good at figuring things out as we go. I specifically chose Rio and I specifically wanted an elective C-section, which was a personal decision I made thoughtfully, and I'm not going to get into the full reasoning here, but it was my choice and I stand by it completely. What I will say is that in Brazil, elective C-sections are common and widely accepted, far more so than in many other countries where you may face resistance from the medical system. Brazilian private maternity care is genuinely world class. The doctors are highly trained, often educated internationally, and the private hospital experience is a level I was not fully prepared for. My rationale was also that if C-sections and the rate of C-sections are higher, not only because of emergency ones, then if I wanted one, it was the best place to get it done. So we flew to Rio when I was 28 weeks pregnant. I had found a few doctors beforehand, but didn't meet with any until I arrived. It was super convenient because all the doctors use WhatsApp, so I could communicate with them when I was still in America. Throughout my third trimester, each doctor's visit cost around $150 USD. These were with my private OB, the doctor I ended up choosing for the birth, so it wasn't a clinic, it was one specialist in her own private practice. Throughout pregnancy, you have a lot of tests, blood work, ultrasounds, screenings. These ranged from about $50 on the lower end to $200 for more comprehensive panels, all paid out of pocket and all completely manageable. This was done in specialty clinics and in hospitals. And a lot of them aren't mandatory. Like I know in the UK, because I had some prenatal appointments there, they're very like hands off. You don't really go in for many things, but in Rio and in Brazil, they are completely different and are a lot more hands-on with wanting to get you screened and checked out. I delivered at a private hospital in Rio. The hospital fee itself, so the facility, the room, the operating room, the stay of 2 nights for a C-section came out to $2,000 USD. The room was beautiful. It had a beautiful mountain view. The care was attentive, and I genuinely just could not believe that was the number. And my doctor, this is where it gets interesting because Brazilian private birth works differently than what most foreigners expect. My doctor came as a package. So she didn't just quote me on her fee. She quoted me a package that included her entire team, the primary OB, her medical assistant, anesthesiologist, physiotherapist, pediatrician who was present for the birth and cared for Leven immediately after. All of that, the entire team came to just under $6,000 US. And I want to be clear, I got quotes from other doctors and I've talked to other mothers. You can find private doctors doing the same package, same team structure for around $2,000 to $3,000. The range I'd put it at is $3,000 to $4,000 depending on the doctor and their experience. And honestly, sometimes whether they clock you as a foreigner, which does happen, but it's not impossible to find excellent care at the lower end of that range. I chose my doctor because I loved her from the first appointment. She was actually the only doctor I met in Rio, but I just knew immediately she was warm, incredibly skilled, completely aligned with my birth plan, and I trusted her completely. She was efficient, responsive, and just everything I could want in a doctor. Also, she was a high-risk doctor, so she specialized in delivery of twins and triplets and complicated births. Because this was my first son, my first birth, I just wanted a really skilled doctor. So for that experience, just under $6,000 felt more than fair. We went in budgeting $10,000 USD all in for the birth in Rio, so prenatal appointments, tests, the hospital, the full doctor team, and a buffer for anything unexpected. We came out more or less to just around that. A couple of things I chose to add on that aren't part of the standard package. One, I hired a doula for the birth, so someone who was in the room with me, who knew my birth plan, who advocated for me, who supported me emotionally through the process and post-process. In Rio, doulas range from $400 to $800 USD. I also had a photographer in the operating room who captured every single moment, and I highly recommend that. I have photos of the moment Leven was born, of my placenta painting, of my parents meeting Leven for the first time, and that came out to $200. Night nurses in Rio from $300 to $1,000 a month, depending on how many shifts per week you opt in for. We chose a schedule that worked for us and it fit within the overall budget. So we opted in for a night nurse 3 times a week. We paid everything out of pocket. And I want to say this clearly, I found the cost more than reasonable for the level of care I received. And that's not me spinning it positively to make a good story, but it's genuinely how I felt sitting in my private room in a beautiful hospital in Rio with a team of people who knew my name and cared about my outcome, my baby, and having had a perfect experience that felt calm, supported, and exactly the birth I wanted. Would it have cost me more in the UK, in the US? Probably yes, with worse bureaucracy, less flexibility, and not the birth I wanted. So from what I've heard from friends who've given birth there, it's a less personal experience and a lot of it ends up in emergency C-sections. So we chose Brazil, we chose Rio, and I would choose it again without hesitation. Our baby was born with 3 passports and we were able to get his birth certificate issued immediately and apply for permanent residency immediately. So if you're a digital nomad, an expat, or someone living outside your home country and thinking about this, what I would say is number one, look into international maternity insurance before you conceive, if at all possible. And if you know that Brazil is where you want to have your baby, that is the main thing I do differently, not because of the out-of-pocket costs, but just because it gives you more options. Like, thankfully, nothing went wrong, but things like the NICU would have been significantly more. Research the private healthcare system in the country you're in or planning to be in. Brazil, for example, has a public system that is free but very strained, and I would not recommend it if you are a foreigner. The private system is outstanding and genuinely affordable by Western standards. The second thing is to get quotes from multiple doctors because prices do vary, and you want to ask directly what the package includes, who is on the team, what's covered, and what isn't. One thing that I loved that my team did was after the birth, I got my entire stomach professionally taped, so muscle taped, and it really helped with bringing all my muscles back together. And I really think that attributed to how I was able to kind of quote unquote bounce back so fast because of the tape that I received and the wraps. And then lastly, if you are considering an elective C-section specifically, Brazil is one of the most accommodating places in the world for that. No questions asked. The medical culture there is supportive. People here are supportive, and everyone is genuinely understanding. It's a maternal choice in a way that Western countries are not. But also on the other end, where I am now in Florianopolis, they are known for home births. So all of my friends here gave birth in their homes. So either in a bathtub or on their bed. You can literally find it all. But personally, giving birth in Rio was one of the most profound and beautiful chapters of my life. Leven came into the world in a city that I now love, surrounded by a team I trusted, and in a way I had chosen deliberately. And yes, we paid out of pocket for it from the income we've built running an online business from anywhere in the world. That is what location independence actually makes possible. So not just the travel, but the flexibility and the options to make the exact right choice for your family wherever in the world that happens to be. I hope these numbers help you. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next episode. Have an amazing week, my loves.